Alright, what's going on, everybody? Just going to try to touch quickly on some external ship camera controls. This is probably going to be more geared toward beginners, but you know, we all got to figure it out at some point. So, here I just have a camera setup, camera shot setup showing something that you could do that looks kind of neat. This is using depth of field, field of view, and a little bit of dynamic zoom. And we're going to get into that. Okay, so just going to go over some simple camera movements. You're going to use F4 or hold F4 for all of these camera movements. That's going to let you use your alternate key bindings. So holding down F4 and using your arrow keys, left, right, forward, backwards, and page up, page down allows you to move the camera off its axis. So this is offsetting the camera in physical space inside of the game. So again, it's page up, page down, left arrow, right arrow, forward arrow, back arrow. That's going to be how you move your camera around. And to move around your ship, you're going to hold down Z and use your mouse. You don't hold down F4 for that. Now, the other thing you're going to have is your field of view. Field of view is still holding F4 is going to be your minus key and your plus key on your number pad. Minus key decreases your field of view, so you're not seeing as much in the environment of what's happening. You know, you're decreasing that field of view, focusing on a point. And your plus key is increasing your field of view, so you can see more of your surroundings and what's going on. Okay. So we can decrease our field of view, get zoomed in on that Spirit logo. Now let's get some stuff in the background. Now the next thing you have is going to be your depth of field. Depth of field is key bound to home and end. And that is also using the F4 key. And you're going to tap home a few times and it's going to start to blur your environment. Now this isn't going to work the way a traditional camera would work because it's in game. It's pretty decent, but you're going to have to play around with it to get your subject in focus. So if we pull our camera back out here, you know, that tree right there is kind of in focus a little bit. And our ship's completely out of focus. And, you know, we just got to play with it and see what's what. And here, I am using our mouse wheel. The mouse wheel in F4 is your dynamic zoom. That's going to move it in just a little bit. Moving your mouse wheel is your dynamic zoom. So that gives you a little bit more fine-tuning adjustments after you move your camera. So let's get it right about here. There we go. Our Spirit logo is pretty clear right there. So again, that's using the front forward arrows and back arrows. That moves the camera, you know, in its physical space. And then using the dynamic zoom with your mouse wheel, that's going to really help you fine tune to get that sucker in focus. And there we go. And if you want to get like a nice panorama, you know, a nice shot of the camera going around, some people's hands are probably a lot more stable than mine. But you see, it's kind of, see my speed, how it's kind of jerky and it's going up and down. Well, I can't keep a consistent speed. So for me, what I do is I go over here to camera controls. I grab mouse sensitivity, slam that sucker all the way down there. I pull mouse smoothing about there. And now she's nice and buttery smooth, man. Makes up for my my old shaky hands. There you go. And of course you just go back and bring that back to where you had it. I think the default is like 38 or so. I think I played just a little bit higher. And move that back down. Once you get here and you want to get back to your starting location, you don't want to have to unblur, you know, move everything back. So what you do is you just hold down F4, hit star, and that resets your camera to its default location. Okay? And now another thing you can do is your keypads, number 1 through 9, those can be key bound and saved to wherever you put the camera. So let's say I want a camera here. I'm going to hold down function 4, hold down number 1 through 9, any of those numbers. you can use and make them whatever you want. I'm just going to make this one number 1. And let me make this one number 2. And I'm going to make this one zoomed in. And we're going to pick our camera back up. Let's get about here. So I'm using page up, page down in my left and rights. And I'm going to decrease my field of view. Let's get right about there. That looks good. And let's add in some depth of field. There we go. Yeah, I like that. So we're going to make that camera 2. So hold down function 4, hold down 2 for about a second, and that has saved that camera location to number 2 on my keypad. Now, if I tap number 1, we jump back to this one. And you can see that does not have the depth of field because the depth of field was not on when I saved the keybind. It only saves whatever is currently active. Jump back to camera 2, depth of field is back on. And that will stay on from then on unless I reset the camera by holding F4 and hitting star. But now if we go back to 2, blur's still there because those were the settings when we saved it. Now these different camera settings on the ship, the 1 through 9, whatever you keybind them to, that is ship specific. So that is going to stay on that ship. So if you have a completely different camera setup for your Hercules versus, you know, M50 or whatever, those cameras won't be the same. They're ship specific. So you don't have to worry about them crossing over and having to re-keybind stuff. So you can have each of your ships have its own designated camera keybinds for that ship and not have to worry about resetting them every time, which is super duper helpful if you're like me and you're in a bunch of different ships going from big ships to small ships. Okay, I just want to show you a cool trick you can do using the different camera save functions. So let's say we want to get our let's say we want to do like the jaw shot or the dolly shot or the Hitchcock shot, kind of like a distorted zoom effect. You get this tunneling effect. It does it okay, not perfect, but just to show you what you could potentially do, get creative. So we're going to put our camera right here on the nose. And to get this shot traditionally in a camera, you're going to either be moving the camera toward the subject while zooming out or be moving the camera away from the subject while zooming in. So just do the opposite of whichever way the camera's going. So let's put our camera on the nose. So we're going to increase our field of view. All right, we're going to increase that and we're going to put the camera there. So now the field of view is as far back as it'll let us go. And I'm going to hold down number 1 to save this camera location. Now I'm just going to hold my back arrow and pull the camera back. And we don't want the camera to move. We want it to be able to go in a straight line or it's going to look a little funny. All right, so right about there should be good. And now I'm going to just decrease my field of view using the minus key. All right, and now I'm going to hold down number 2 and save that camera location. So now when I switch between camera 1 and camera 2, you can see how it's getting that zoom effect. And it's really effective if you can get a good background. Okay, so let's take a look at some camera settings in the game menu now. So under options, under game settings, this is going to be where most of your things are. There's some more stuff under here, but we won't really touch on that. Camera spring movement is usually on by default. I generally keep mine off, but it depends on what I'm doing. But on, you're probably familiar with this. And when you roll your ship, you can see how it springs. Right, it's like it's on a rope. Whereas with it off, it's going to be in a fixed location. See, now it's like it's mounted to the wing. Just depends on what kind of shot you want to get. Now, if we turn that, we leave that off, right? And if we scroll down to where we see global camera shake, this is something else that is going to affect your camera. And mainly it affects the inside. So let's just take a look. Right now it's on 0. And if we go inside of our ship, because this is where you're going to see it the most, is when the camera's for like an inside cockpit view versus outside the ship. And I'll show you that. Okay, so that's going to be camera 1. And this is going to be camera 2, just to show you the difference. So inside with no camera spring and no global shake, the camera is perfectly still, okay? Now, if we go and we turn camera spring movement on, well, now our camera is going all over the place and it's going through the ship. That's no good. Unless you want that, then it's perfect. So that's what happens inside. Now, let's turn camera spring off. And let's go and crank up global camera shake. Now, what this normally does, camera shake, is when you're in first person and you hit the thrusters, you know, your HUD and your ship and everything shakes. It's pretty cool. But that being said, even though we're not in first person here, we're seeing our whole ship shake, because that's pretty much what it does. So when we hit boost, you can see the ship shaking, which is cool. But you might not want that, or you may want to tone it down, and you can move that slider. And you can see when we go outside the ship, you see it, but not as much, because our camera's outside the ship, so you're not going to have your whole environment shaking. Only the ship is, and not the rest of the environment. That is pretty much it, guys. Like I say, I might have missed some stuff. I try to cover just the basics and show you a couple tricks, but hopefully this helps you out and you can make some cool stuff and get some cool screenshots. All right. Thank you to all the patrons, and y'all have yourselves a good evening.